Hey everybody, this is Brenda Devine from Purpose 8 Institute, and you're listening to my podcast, Living a Life of Purpose, where we discuss the importance of purpose in our everyday lives. Discovering and living out your purpose keeps you focused on God's purpose. That is sharing the good news of salvation with others. This podcast is for people like me, still searching for the answers to who am I and why am I here? You and I were designed and created by God for purpose, and we have much to do. You can listen and subscribe to my podcast, Living a Life of Purpose with Brenda Devine on Anchor and all other podcast platforms. Hey, this is Brenda Devine from Purpose 8 Institute. Hey, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of my podcast, Living a Life of Purpose. So today's topic is valley walking. I want to talk to you about the journey of purpose. A little bit about some specific points that happened with me in 2016. So at that time, I was new to understanding what purpose is, and I was walking in my purpose and learning about it, and I got challenged at work with a trial. And it was, I took a real big hit in my pride. And I got moved to a location, an area that was a total change from what I was accustomed to, what I was used to dealing with, who I was used to dealing with. So it was all a change. And in my opinion, it was prompted by a particular individual. And it was a rough ride. And I remember the building that I had to walk through. I hated it so much. I hated walking through that building. I just hated being in that and walking through, sort of like a tunnel. And when I walked through it, I kept reminding myself, thinking that this was a valley that I was walking through. But at the time, I was so mad about being in that valley. And it was a struggle with that challenge of balancing my purpose and what I knew God was doing with me, and balancing it with that walking through that valley, and also, the offense of that person that caused me in my head to walk through that valley. And I remember reading about images and the how images can trigger us, and how when we see certain pictures, it brings up certain emotions. So I decided I was going to take a picture of that valley, and then I was going to change it by putting images around and on that valley, on that picture. So when I had to walk through that valley, I would focus on the image that I made instead of the image that I saw. So I did that for a long time. Whenever I got close to where I had to walk through that valley, I would pull that picture up on my phone, and I would look at that picture while I walked through that valley. So at the end of that story, and that was a huge challenge in my life, a huge testing of pride and being and maintaining maintaining being righteous, because at the end of it, of all the emotion and all the pride and all the confusion, the key point was, what is my response going to be in this situation? And what I realized is that I had to be righteous. Even though I was going through something that I did not like, a place I did not want to be, walking through a valley that I did not want to walk through, being challenged in ways that I never had to before, and having to adjust to it. I learned so much about pride and about myself. And at the end of that, and it eventually came to an end, where, and for me, the end was that person was no longer in my purview. I still had to walk through the valley, but God started teaching me about pride and about learning and about more things about me. Because when we're in a valley, that is the time when we start learning about us. That is the time when we see our weaknesses. That is when the time we start to see our strengths. That is the time when we start to realize I really need to rely on God and not my own emotions. My faith has to come before my emotions, because that's really what it gets down to. We have to rely on our faith when we're going through these challenges and these tests. So the end result was I learned a lot. I learned, and I knew God was preparing me. I knew He was, but we get this whole anticipation, like, what are you preparing me for? And I didn't know. So I ended up learning about patience and long suffering and forgiveness, and those are the fruits of the Spirit. And I had to learn to change the way I communicate with people and the words that I choose and how I walk into a room. That 2016 incident, that offense, for me it was an offense, that changed and prepared me for whatever's next. End result, I ended up killing the person that offended me with kindness. I just was consistent with it, and that's not my nature. Let's being real honest, that's not my nature to kill someone with kindness. But what I learned is that I had to be righteous. In whatever situation, I had to be righteous. And out of that 2016, 17, 18 trial, challenge, offense, my book, Authentication Process, came out of it. And that challenge, that trial, that offense has helped me, and it's helped others. So last week, I was walking through the same valley, and I noticed something. And I remembered when I used to walk through that valley, and it just made me so mad. And I remembered walking through that valley with my phone and focusing on that picture, playing gospel music to get me prepared for the day and whoever I would meet, and to prepare my heart. I remember walking through there and how much it was a struggle, and how I had to focus on my response, how I had to focus on my faith and not what I saw all around me, but I had to focus on what was good. And I remembered that, and I was walking out, and I noticed the change in me from 2016, 17, and 18. I noticed the change in me. nothing has gotten better. Actually, things have gotten worse. But I've gotten better. I've gotten better. Not because I did it, because God did it. He has humbled me and made me see so much about my strengths and my weaknesses. But He has also reminded me over and over again that I am about His purpose. So when I'm walking through that valley and I've got this whole different mindset and attitude, it is a humbling confidence that I know who I am. I know what God has called me to do. I'm living out my purpose. I may not be living it all there, but I'm living it in other ways with my ministry and my project. And I am living out my purpose. And the places that we go, some of them we may not be happy with. We may not like. But those are the places, those valleys are the places that God is preparing us. In that valley, I learned how to deal with a whole lot of personalities that I would have never been able to deal with before. In that valley, I was humbled to my core. In that valley, I held on to my purpose because I knew that my purpose and my identity, they were aligned, not just for my time on earth, but my purpose, the higher purpose, God's purpose for salvation. I learned in that valley, I can't be acting a fool and say that I'm about God's purpose. I learned in the valley, there's times I have to be quiet. I learned in the valley that there's times that I'm going to be long-suffering, and I hate to be long-suffering. Okay, I had to learn to be long-suffering. Had to learn in that valley to be patient. I had to learn in the valley to draw closer to God. I had to learn in the valley, though, even though I have good friends that I love, even though I love my husband and my son, they can't give me what I need. I can talk and complain about being in the valley, but who's really going to help me in the valley? God has helped me in the valley. God has kept me in the valley. God has prepared me in the valley. God has kept my mind in the valley. God has kept my heart in the right places in the valley. So as much as I hate the valley, God is in the valley with me. He has taught me so much. God is in the valley with you. So while we're going on this journey of purpose, while we are holding on to, for those of us who know our purpose, those of us who are on that journey, who every day we wake up and it's like, God, this is what I know you want me to do. There is so much comfort and confidence and peace in knowing that God has given you something to do and that you are active in it. There's so much peace in it. And that peace contradicts everything that's going on around you, that's swirling around you. That valley, what you learn in that valley is preparing you, and it's the catalyst to the next thing. It is elevating your faith. It is teaching you about your gifts. Your gifts will be manifested in the valley. So while you're in the valley, you have the choice to stay angry, stay bitter, stay mad, and trust. It took a while for me to align myself to that, to embrace it. I understood it. Understanding and reading is one thing. Applying it to your life and being consistent with it is another thing. I'm not a master of it, but I'm resilient because I know that God has a purpose for my life, and I'm not willing to let the valley take it. So I had to make a decision. Am I going to humble myself to God's hand and let him prepare me in this valley? Let him pour me out. Yes, it hurts. It hurt so bad. I have never felt that bad in the valley. Never. But I had to go with it because fighting it just made it worse. So I had to trust him. I had to trust him. And I thought I was trusting him. But I wasn't really trusting him because I was fighting it. And I heard, I was listening to a message about saying, I will trust you. And I started saying, I will trust you, Lord. I will trust you. I stopped fighting it and I just went to the flow and said, you know what, God, this is your business, okay? This is not my business. You brought this. This is your business. So I'm going to handle my business. And my business is to be righteous. My business is to trust you. My business is to learn. My business is to discern. My business is to pay attention. My business is to know the truth and to say the truth. That is what my business is. So if you are in the valley, you walking in that valley, know that your valley is going to change. The look may stay the same. And when I say change, it's not that the valley actually changes, but you are going to change in the valley. You have to decide, am I going to change for the worse? Am I going to be bitter, angry, act a fool consistently for long periods of time? Or am I going to get a clue? Am I going to not be distracted by that? Am I going to read my word? Am I going to get closer to God? Am I going to let him empty me out? Even though it hurts, even though it's driving me crazy, I'm waiting for God to answer me and move me. Am I going to allow him to pour me out and make something better? Because God is making something better in me. Feel it, that he's making me better. And I feel, I'll be honest, I feel like the Brenda that I was when I was a kid, when I was fearless, when I was doing what I wanted, when I was being me. Before anybody said anything and made an offense, I was being me. So I feel good. I feel confident, a humble confidence, not arrogant in any way, but I feel confident because I know God is preparing me. I know he's making me better. So I'm saying this to encourage you. If you're in a valley or you get in a valley, while you're there, you're coming out. You're coming out. You're going to come out better. You're going to come out stronger. You're going to come out wiser. You're going to come out friendlier. You're going to come out calmer. You're going to come out more peaceful. You're going to come out stronger. You're going to come out with a manifestation of your gifts that you never even imagined. So, cry, roll on the ground, pray, but draw closer to God. Because that's really what he wants you to do, is to draw closer. That's really what he wanted me to do, to draw closer. And I don't want to move away from him. I don't want to. I'm not going to. I know how it feels to be away from him. I can't bear it. I just can't. So while you're in that valley and it hurts, take pick up all the lessons that God is teaching you. Study. Draw closer to Him. You're going to feel alone. You may feel sad, but stay. Stay with God. Draw closer to Him. Don't let anything distract you from it. Because really, when you get down to it, it's just you and your God, the Creator and the creation. That's it. This is Brenda Devine from Purpose 8 Institute. Hey, I'll talk to you in a little bit. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me on my podcast, Living a Life of Purpose, on Anchor and all other major podcast platforms. To learn more about Purpose 8 Institute and our ministry of sharing the importance of purpose, please visit our website, www.purpose8institute.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and even TikTok. If you would like to learn more about purpose beyond this podcast, Living a Life of Purpose, you can also purchase one of my books that are available on my website, purpose8institute.com, and also on Amazon.